I probably called this video, I made a huge mistake, or I did something stupid, because I did, and I'm going to tell you about that thing. But first, my Sony G20mm lens, I dropped it while trying to film myself. I was able to fix it with super glue one time, but I threw it in my bag and it came apart, so I'm gonna try and fix it again. I have had a hard time making YouTube videos recently, and it's not necessarily due to inspiration. A lot of my music production work has to be turned in at a very specific time, and then along that time we had school ending, and then we went to the beach, and I tried to make a video at the beach, but that didn't work. Before I get to the main story, I did buy one of these. Can you read that? It's a MacBook Pro. I don't see much of a need to make a video review about this because there's 100,000 of them out there. Basically, I paid off my Mac Studio and thought, why not just keep paying? I'm so used to having a studio computer and a laptop. The screen on my laptop was all jacked up and the battery was worthless. So my wife saw me working with the busted screen and said, it's time for you to get a new laptop, and that is all I need to hear. I started and abandoned another video. On our way home from the beach, we stopped at a Chick-fil-A, and the door to the bathroom made this crazy sound. It's like an elephant and a trumpet. It was awful, but yet great, so I thought I would chop it up and see if I could create something interesting. And I got close, but then it just sounded like the door of a stall in a bathroom. A few months ago, I retired the Meyerfeld because I wanted to reinvent the Meyerfeld. I have a new look for the soft drums, and it's done quite well. It's definitely something that I want to continue to pursue. The Meyerfeld, I did all that by myself, and it didn't look all that great. The idea was to add a few more layers and make some tweaks. I wasn't going to resample. I promised you all that I would give it to you for free, so it didn't make a ton of sense to, redo everything completely. But even though it makes no sense, I did it anyways. I sampled it years ago. It was mostly in fifths, some fourths, not a ton of round robins. There were some nuances and characteristics to it that sometimes sounded cool, other times when they happened over and over again, not so cool. So I thought maybe I could touch those up, but I realized, I'm just gonna resample this thing. So I set up all my mics, and I'm gonna talk about this without talking about it too much because I'm not ready to share it. Set up my U47s to capture the felts like I did before, the XY pattern, KM84s for kind of a not mono, but a tighter focus sound. Put my ribbons around in the back. Then I recorded myself playing to get something that I could mix, and it sounded really nice. So you go through the process of sampling, and if you don't know this process, I don't know how to explain it to you. It's a miserable process, and I think that everyone who does this for a living would agree with me, I think, unless they have a problem of some kind. I guess perhaps it could be like meditative, not for me. It took hours and hours. I'd wait until the middle of the night, kids are asleep, UPS trucks are done for the evening, and fewer planes flying overhead, and I would sample and sample and sample and sample. You think it's all gonna be quicker than it is, but you go through the process of editing every note, chopping it up, you go into Reaper, you name things, you export it, you load it in. This takes hours, days worth of work. The initial results were great. The sounds were much improved, more realistic, more flexible, more expressive, everything that I wanted it to be. Super happy. But I noticed that one mic set was very similar to the other mic set, and I thought, well, it's the same piano, it's similar microphones. You get similar results, that the mics are almost in the same spot. And they were tweaked different EQs, and so they were kind of not the same. But then one day I thought, you know what? Something's not right here. I can't figure out what it was. I've got to figure this out, because I was just pushing this down the line, because there's so much other work to do. When you're making a sample instrument, you have this moment in the beginning where you can hear the sound, and then the process of editing, you are separated from the sound for a long time. You're working on these little parts. You never see it in context in the whole. So then the time came, I just sat down and I zoomed into the very smallest part of the waveform, the sample level, and realized that the signals were exactly the same. I don't know how I did it, but I opened my session back up and realized that I had switched the input on one set of microphones to the same preamp input as another set. So all that work, I was editing the exact same signal. I was so sad and so angry, and I wasn't quite sure what to do. I mean, I thought about, should I just go back to what I'd done before and make the tweaks that I thought I wanted to do? But I'd heard what it could be. But the sounds that I was left with, that wasn't enough either. I emailed my buddies who were working on this with me, and I was in a pretty dark place for hours, really a couple days, because I had other projects to do. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to put this on the back burner and figure out what to do next. Now, why am I sharing all of this with you? I'm about to try to sell you a product, so I should probably not talk about all the ways I messed it up. But when I was playing it, I realized that this gave me an opportunity to try something that I'd been wanting to try anyways, but it seemed like too much work, and I'd already messed this up. So I went for it, and I don't want to tell you too much about what I did, but I sampled the piano in a different way and combined it with what I had already done. And I might still be just in love with the fact that this just happened and I just heard it yesterday, but I am so happy with the result. It sounds exactly like what I wanted it to sound like. And I hear all of these ways that I can use it in my own music. And that has always been the driving force when I decide to really dive into a sample. Is this a sound that I could make and use? You know, it feels so much more like making a personal album than it does making a sample library. And the hope is that if there are people out there that like my music, well, that there are also people that like my taste and the way that I approach making a sound, and the way I make all of the decisions. I don't know if most people understand how every single part of every single sound can be tweaked. And then once it's in contact or whatever, you can do more to it then, and you can tweak and tweak and tweak. It's not like you just sample it and it's done. There's so much of this process of putting my stamp or your stamp. There. I think I did it. Let's see if it works. I'll be right back. Seems to be working. If I switch it to manual focus, can I? Oh, look at that. Ha! Super glue. Let me try to tell you why I'm telling you all of this. There are moments when everything comes together at once, and there are moments where you're sitting around thinking, what am I doing with my life? And then there are moments when you work on something and you put everything you have into it and you mess up, whether it's under your control or it's somebody else's control. It's outside factors. There are times when you work really hard and you invest everything you have in something and it does not work. And there are times when you need to abandon that thing. And there are times when you need to keep working. Most of the time when it's writing a song, the answer is keep working. Please hear me out. There are times when you can force your way through something that you probably should abandon and shift gears. But there are also times when the reason why you don't want to do that thing, the reason why I don't want to do that thing, is because it's difficult. But I also know that every step along the way, if I'm encountering difficulties and I'm persevering through those things, not that this is entirely my motivation, but I know a lot of people are checking out. And a lot of my competition are checking out because it's not the easiest path. The more invested you are in something, the more it hurts when it doesn't work out. I need to quit making these don't quit videos and making them too frequently, but there are a lot of reasons to quit. If you are confident that you are in this for the long haul, then just ride the waves.